Hello, this is Christian. In this video, we'll be looking at the associative arrays in PHP. First, we'll look at the characteristics of an associative array. Then we'll go into how you can create an associative array, and then how to traverse the associative array. Also, look at an example of some complex arrays using associative array, and then we'll do some coding demo. So the associative arrays, as you can see, is really a key value pair. It is very similar to the indexed arrays, except the indexed now can also be characters or strings. And again, it is using this key value pair, and you access the index or the array the same way as you would with the regular indexed arrays. Keys can be only numeric or strings, cannot be any others. And negative numeric key values are allowed because you can treat them as strings. So let's see how you can create an associative array. It's pretty simple, really. So this is the syntax for that. You create a variable name, assign that to, and you call the function or the constructor array, and you just create a key value pair with the join each of those with the arrow. Here is an example of that. You have a car, a variable is an array, has certain keys and values. So make, model, year, and color, for example. This may be a little hard to see, so you can rewrite this using multi-lines, just like the one you see here. And sometimes this is much easier because now you're using the brackets instead of the array. Here's another one. This is maybe more feasible because now you're dealing with a list of cars, whereas the previous one we only talk about one car. So now if you have a collection of cars, you want to store them into an array, then each array in the cars array, right, say we were talking about two-dimensional arrays here, then is an index array, but then the actual cars array are really the associative array. And so if you wanted to traverse this associative array, you would do something like this using the for each. If you're only interested in displaying the values and not the keys, then you would just use the for each function, and you would say car as the value. Again, the variable value here, it can be anything, it can be any variable you want. Sometimes people might use the word item. If that's more meaningful, then that's fine. And then you just echo the value out. Again, notice there's no index to reference here. Okay, you get those data if you print it out. If you are interested in both the keys and values, then you would just add that key to the second part of the function here. So car A as key, and then the arrow to values. And that is exactly the same as how you declare an array with the key value pair, right? With the arrow in there. And then when you print it out, then you have access to both the keys and the values. And again, the variables, key, and values are just by convention. You can call it whatever you want. So let's look at a more complex associative array. For example, let's just say there's an address of a certain home. This is an associative array with the street, points to the street address there, the city, state, and zip code. And this person also has a car, the car make, model, and year, and color of the car. And this person also has a house. The year is 2019. The price of the house is $1.5 million. And the location, as you can see here, is pointing to an address, which is the array above it, right? So you can point that to another array, which is what we say is an array of arrays. And then let's just say this person has a job as well. And this person works for a company called ZYX Consulting Firm. Position is an operations manager, 12 years experience, and started at 2010 and with a salary of $250K per year. And we'll assume that this person has a name of Penny. So we have an array of Penny with her name. Her car points to the car array. Home points to the house array. And work points to the job array. And then maybe Penny is one of the employees of a company. So you have Penny, Jake, and Mark. And each of these employees is marked or associated with an employee ID. Okay, so you can see how this can get pretty complicated as you build more of this. And if you were to display this using a different method, so like the associative array, you can see things clearer this way. You can see that the array is composed of arrays and are composed of arrays. So if you want to print her name Pennywise, you would do something like this. Employees of 101, that's the employee's ID. And then we reference her name, which is the key, and get the value Pennywise. And this is an example of a 2D array. If you want to get her salary, you do something similar. You go into the employees, and then you will go into the work instead of the name. And then, as you can see, work is another array, points to another array. So inside the array, you reference the salary. So this is an example of a 3D array. And last but not least, if you want to look at her, the city where she's from, or where she lives, then you do something similar. Employees 101, go to the home array. Inside the home array, there's another location, points to another array. Inside the array, you reference the city, and you get the actual city, which is Santa Monica. And this is a 4D array. So you can see the idea here, that things can get pretty complex as you go deeper and deeper. Okay, so let's go into the code and do some more demo. Alright, so in here I'm going to go and create a new file, and we're just going to call this one here maybe key values.php. I'll just do a really simple example, and then we'll go into the code. We'll do a web page and go a little bit deeper into the more examples. So a typical, I guess, a classical example would be something like, say that I want to, store some grade points. Okay, and it's grade points. If I get an A, I get 4.0. If I get a B, I get 3.0. I get a C, 2, and then D, 1. And if it's an F, it's a 0. So this is the grades, right? And then now, so I will store a variable called score, the score for test. Let's just say that this person receives a 95, okay? And then you want to find out what grade this person receives. So usually you would have a range. We'll say that from 90 to 100, you get A, 91 to 100, you get A. Or if you want to include 90, if you don't include, then you just don't include it. Let's just say 90 to 100, you get A, 80 to 89, you get B, and so on. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to set a grade variable, and then I would do if grade or score is greater than or equal to 90, for example. And then if that's the case, then the grade assigned will be in the letter A. It's not liking my keyboard. Okay, else if the score is greater than or equal to 80, then I get a B. Right? And so on. So I'm going to just copy this and place it right here. C, D, and F. And then this is 70, 60, and this part here we don't really care, so just else. This will be F, D, and C. Okay, so those are our grades. And okay, now we have to say, okay, if it's a D or an A, then you get a certain GPA, right? And so now then we need to basically use, if we have to use this array. Of course, we don't just print out 4 if it's A, point 4 and things like that. But if you have to use this array, right, then you can do a switch statement or another if else if you want. But let's just say we use a switch here. I'm switching the grade. Okay, if the grade is an A, then I'm going to say the GPA is going to be pointing to the grade points of a 0, right? If that's the case. Something's not liking me here. What's going on? Let's see. I did something incorrectly here. If it's grade, then I need to put a case here. That's what I'm missing. So case A, you get that. And I'll just do this 4 times. If it's B, if it's a C, D, and this is an F, You could do it separately, but for now it's fine. It's one way. There's lots of ways to do it. Okay, so we got the grade, and then finally we just echo the grade or GPA, and we just put here the GPA. Okay, so if I save this and run it in terminal, I just run in terminal here. cd module 6 and PHP key value pair. So you can see that it points to, has a GPA of 4 because 95 is an A, right? So if you put 65, save that. 65, I'm expecting to have a C, a D. So that should be a 1-point grade. So here's 1-point grade. Okay, and so on. So this is, pretty typical. But if you're using associative array, you can actually save a few lines of code in here. All right. So when you calculate the grade, you still need to do this part. But once you got the grade, then you can just omit all of these and just print the grade right away. Assuming you have reassigned this to a different method. So let's just say instead of grade like that, I'm going to say an A points to 4, a B points to 3, C references a 2, and D a 1, and then F with 0. So I'm just changing the key from the indexed 0 through N to A, B, C, D, and F instead. So now when I go down here and reference my grade, I'm not going to need this anymore. I don't need this. Once I know the letter grade, I can access the points right away. Okay, so instead of GPA here, I don't need this variable here. I would just go into the grade points. So here I would say grade points of what? A, B, C, or D, right? What are those values? Well, those are the grades, the grade variables here. So I'm just say of grade. And that's it, right? So save you these many lines of code. And go to terminal, clear my screen. And as you can see, I get 1 point for D. If I go and put 75 here, okay, if I run it again, I get 2.4 GPA of 2. Okay, this is why it's quite handy if you have this kind of scenario to use to reference the key instead of using the index. Okay, so now let's do something a little bit more fun, more meaningful. I'm going to recreate this, create a new project, a new file. And I guess let's just say that we are going to create a form, like a registration form, register.html. And this is, we're going to register new user or new employees, right? And so in this employee form, I'm going to have it, I'm going to go to a file called register.php. We'll create this in a minute. And the method's going to be, I'll use get for now. Come on. Okay, so in the form, I'm just going to get maybe like a couple of things. One will be like the first name, and I'll use a label here. And then I'll put here first name. And so the input will be name. If you give it a name, is first. Okay, and I'm just going to duplicate this line, Control D. When you move your cursor here, Control D a couple times. First name, last name, and then I just call it last. This would be maybe like position. So position here. And then one more here for salary, and we'll put salary here. And the last one here, well, we're just going to put nothing here. And what we'll put here, the type will be submit. Okay. And I like to wrap my value with quotes. So the name, not first, but the name is going to be submit. Okay, So that's our typical form, and I think that's okay. So I'm gonna run this now in the browser. Well, looks kind of not too shabby, but let's make it a little bit nicer very quickly. Style this, and I'm just gonna start the label. We'll give it a name. Well, I'm gonna give it display type of block. Okay, so we have a display of block. What else do we need? Maybe the width. Force the width to be around 150 px. Let's see how that holds or not. And we'll give it a margin, maybe 10. Okay, just give it a little nice space around the form here. So refresh it. Right, it's good enough. Okay, so when I click on this data here, I click submit. It's going to go call the register file, and you see here in the URL this data here. Okay, so let's go back and let's go and then use created file in here. We call it register.php, and this is where you have used before a web form. Okay, very similar. Now in the form, we're going to pretty much just grab the data from the form using the get or the post array, global array. Since we're using get as the method here, then you must use the get to get the data, otherwise the post will not see it. Since you cannot use post and get at the same time, so only one or the other, so you have to check to see which one you're using. In this case, it's a get, so then I can say if get is the get is set, and you check for any value, usually the submit button. And this is why we have to give it a name in the submit when we create this form here, right? The name is submit. If you don't give it a name here, it's not going to know. So you have to check one of these fields to make sure that the form has been sent. Because once you click the submit, then all of these input data or any field that has a name and a value will be submitted. So all the input fields, text area, selection, those by default they have the value attribute associated with it. Others do not. So if they don't have them, you have to explicitly specify them to use them. So I'm using a get, so therefore I'm going to check the get, check the submit is clicked or not. If it has been clicked, then I'm good, right? And just to show that it does work, I'm going to go here and echo the get of, let's just say, the first name. Okay, save that, and let's go to the file and refresh this file. Make sure everything is loaded. So then I'm going to go and let me maximize this now. I need to see what's in the URL. It's going to put here Joe Black. It's an HR manager, and then just a 150,000. And if you click submit, okay, you see that the data are appended to the URL of the web page here. You see the first, which is the name of the field. These are the name of the fields here, in here, in here, in here. And these are the values. So again, key value pair, right? And we only showed, I only want to display the first name, which is Joe. So you see that here. Okay, so this is get. And then we'll switch this and let's just change it to post if you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, in this case, post or get. But we'll just keep it get so we can see the actual data too. All right, so then let's just say that now, what if you want to print out not just the name, but also the keys, right? So I want to print something kind of similar to the form. I want to print, if you say, here would be like first name, or first, the actual key, and then I'll append that to get first, right? This is the hard way you can do this way. So first here, last, and then position, salary. And the last one I don't have, just extra. So you can do that. And then over here, I have to do the BR, right? So let's see if I do that. Paste it here, here, and here. So now if I save this again and go back to my form and refresh it and do it again, Joe Black, I just put manager and then 150K. Submit. So I got the result, right? As you can see, well, I didn't change the data, but you see that I get the keys here because I put it in the code. What if I keep changing the form to add more fields or remove some fields? What do I do then? I have to go back in here and remodify this every time, which I do not want, right? So this will be last and so on. So instead of doing this, as you can see, get is an array. It's an array of key value pairs. Key value pair, right? The key here, you get the actual value and so on. And very similar to what we had earlier. So what it does behind the scenes, and when you click submit, when you submit the form, PHP will grab the key, which are the name value of this name attribute, and it will use these as the key, and then assign to these keys the value you input into this form. So you get a key value pair. And you wonder, well, how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple, really, right? So we remember how to do something like this. So you could do something like keys. For example, back to the example of the grade. Let me just pull this back, the key value pair. So again, so these are the key values, right? So the keys value. If you want to recreate this here, then you could just use this as keys. And what I mean was like this. So if you have an array of keys, this would be just maybe, A, B, C. Just do 3, okay? And then I'll create an array called points, and then this would be an array of keys of 0 that points to 4.0, and so on. That's how you build that array with key value pair, right? And then 1 here, and then 2 here would be like 3, and then 2, and so on. So this is what happens behind the scene when you click submit. PHP would grab all your data, all your keys, assigns the key to an array called get or post, depending on which one, and then you assign the actual values from these fields to them. And that's what you get, a key value pair. All right, so that's how it works. So now, since we get the key value, you can also access these keys value instead of just doing this way. So instead of doing this, let me just redo the whole thing up here. So I'm gonna do something like for each, and I'm using the get for each get as, and we'll call this key value or item, either way. Inside the loop, now I have access to both the keys and the values of the entire array get. And then now I can just echo, maybe you put a P here, and instead of hard coding that word first or last in there, I'll just grab it from the key. Okay, and then I'll put the colon here, and then dot, append the value to go with that as well. And finally you close the P tag, and there you go. That's it. So now it works with any size of form. It comes all of them. The only thing you don't want is probably the get, because the get comes with it, right? I mean, the submit comes with it, which you don't want. Which you can omit. You can say if it's not equal to submit, you omit that. But let's just say I do that, and now reload my form. I just reload it. I have the, well, let's go back and do another one. Reload this. Put again, Joe Black HR, and then 140 this time. He got reduced. Okay, so here we go. We get the first name, last name, position, salary, and so on. So this one you don't want. So you can say if the submit is equal to submit, toss it out. But maybe you want to uppercase this and so on, right? Because these are not properly formatted. So that's pretty simple. You can just go in here and say, okay, for every key before I print it out, I need to do like key equals 2, and I need to replace well, uppercase the first letter of each word. Okay, so usually you do like uppercase word, the first words, or every word if you want, or if you just want the first letter of the first string, then that's what you want. If you want every word to be uppercase, then you put the words here. Sometimes this is more helpful. And inside here is the key, because sometimes maybe the key is it's the 2 words, right? And then now I uppercase the first words. For example, if the first was first, then now it becomes first, like that. If the word was start date, then that becomes start date. Okay, it formats to be that way because every word in the string. And so if I save it now, go back to the browser and just refresh it, you'll see that now it's all uppercase, right? So very handy in this example. I'll just show you one more and then we'll end the video. And I want to show you words. Let's just say if I have that the word here will be 2 words. So I will have like maybe like last position, and here could be like I don't know, starting or ending salary, right? Something like, or last salary, however you want to call it. So if I do that, then I think by default PHP will render this with the underscore. So usually you put an underscore something here, okay? Underscore. And now in here I have to do something a little bit different. But if we go back to my file and if I submit, okay, I don't see the thing here until we submit this again. So I'm going to go and submit again. And I have to refresh it because I need the new data to load. So Jody, black, HR, and then 125,000. So here we go. We have the last position and ending salary. Again, maybe you want to remove this and put a capital P here in the space, right? So you can do something with the string, and that's not really hard. You can do, okay, so I got the words here. Before I even do this, I need to do something with the key. And you can do a string replace, okay? That means removes all the underscore and replace with a space. So I can say key equal to string replace. And I'm searching for what? I'm searching for a underline. And I replace that with a space inside the string of key. That's all I'm doing. So once I get that, so in this case, if I have like start position, last underscore position, this will become last position. And then now I can uppercase the first letter of the first word. Okay, so save that. And if you go back to the browser and reload, and now you should see the position should be replaced with a space, and then you capitalize the first letter. Again, if you don't want to show this, just say if it's submit, remove them. So for example, before you even do all these, you can say something like if get key, the value, right? If value is equal to submit, because we call it, right? Then do nothing else, do the rest. So I want to do the rest. So that means I can remove this and say if this is not equal to that. Okay? So you do the negation, and then not only displays it if it's not the value of submit. Now I save that and go to the browser, refresh it, and that should be gone. Everything is gone. Something is not right. Okay, so if value is not equal to submit. Okay, well maybe it doesn't like this thing here. So let's just put the whole thing inside its own paren here. Okay, so save this and reload again, and hopefully that works. Okay, here we go. So now the submit is no longer showing. Alright, so that is an example of what you can do with the associative array, and these are very common in PHP, especially the get and the post, which you can actually get the data. It comes in the form of a key value pair in the array, so very handy.